Hi, everyone. Welcome to our April show and tell. I had to think about what month it was. Thanks for joining us. I'll be your host today. I'm Michael Fisher, VP of Menswear here at FS. This is our first show and tell since our company has rebranded to Future Snoops. So welcome to Future Snoops. Anyone who follows us on social media or is a client of ours, you've probably been getting emails about our rebranding. After 25 years, we have officially rebranded as Future Snoops. We're really excited about that. And you can read about everything about the rebranding efforts if you go to our homepage or read through some of the emails that you may have received. One thing that I just wanted to promote really quickly is we do have an amazing white paper that our agency has written that a lot of people are writing articles about currently. It's called The Creative Unflattening. And it's really great for everyone out there who just kind of wants to know how to reset their business to possibly break free from this age of average that everyone's wanting to get out of. So I believe Ellie's actually going to put a link to it in the chat box for you all. If you haven't seen it in your inbox, you can go to this link and download it. It's a really great white paper that you can save to your desktop and have it for the months ahead. So really excited about that and a lot more future Snoops things coming in the coming weeks and months. So if you don't typically join us for show and tell, this is a webinar we do on the first Wednesday of every month. It's just a chance for some of our global team to get together, share some things that are currently inspiring us. Today, we have a jam-packed full webinar. We're joined by our culture team, who's going to go through some great findings from South by Southwest that they attended. We also have our kids team and our active team. So a lot of great links to get through today. Before we do that, as always, we love to hear your questions and feedback as we go through the webinar. So please do take advantage of the chat box. Just be sure to choose everyone in the pull down so that both attendees and our panelists can see your question or your comment. As a reminder, we will definitely follow up with you in the next day or two with a recording of the webinar. So don't feel the need to write down all the links. We'll give you everything that you need. And you can find all past show and tells both on our YouTube channel by searching for Fashion Snoops, which will now be Future Snoops, or if you're a client by going to the webcast portion of our homepage. I'm going to turn it over to Ellie to go over some upcoming events that we would love to invite you to. Hi, Ellie.
Hello, Michael. Hi, everyone. So we are hosting 3 insightful webinars this month. The first, The Creative Unflattening, takes place on the 15th of April and will be led by our Head of Content and Innovation, Jenna Gorasho. And during this session, we'll dive into the key takeaways from our recently published white paper that you can also find in the chat there, examining the cycles driving homogenization across industries and how to break free. Second, we are launching a new bi-monthly webinar series, Sustainability No Filter, your opportunity to uncover hidden truths about sustainable design. So join our Director of Sustainability, Emma Grace Bailey, every second month to have your questions answered. And the first session takes place on the 17th of April. And finally, our VP of Women's Wear, Melissa Moylan, and VP of Menswear and Show and Tell host that you're all familiar with, Michael Fisher, will be hosting the Future of Retail on the 23rd of April. And this webinar will spotlight emerging movements, mindsets, and micro behaviors shaping tomorrow from our annual report with the same name, The Future of Retail. So to register for any or all of these events, visit futuresnoops.com/events or simply click the resource button in your Zoom toolbar to sign up directly. But that's all from me. Back to you, Michael, to kick off the April show and tell.
Great. Thank you, Ellie. I'm actually going to go ahead and our culture team is going to take control of the webinar here for the first half. They attended South by Southwest just a couple weeks ago, and we actually have a special guest. and our Director of Culture, Navara, is going to introduce her. So I'll turn it over to Navara.
Thank you, Michael. I'm Navara, Director of Culture, like Michael said. So the whole team got to attend South by Southwest this year, which was super exciting and inspiring. We're located in all different areas of the country, so for some of us, this is our first time meeting each other. And I think very early on in the show, when we all got together and started comparing our notes, it kind of became this running joke within the team that every talk and presentation we went to, people kept on saying the word authenticity. It was almost like a drinking game. You know, everyone just like tosses around this word authenticity, but do we even know what it means anymore? Or did we ever know what it means? I think it's so overused now that it's kind of become meaningless. But for my show and tell, I've brought on a guest today who I saw at South by Southwest, who actually I think really managed to give shape to this idea of authenticity. She presented research that her team did into the heartland of America. And it was probably the most inspiring, the best thing I saw at the show. And I'm so thrilled that she's able to join us today for show and tell to kind of take us through a mini version of her presentation. So welcome Camilla Caldas, strategy director at Mother LA.
Thank you so much for having me and for the introduction. Yeah, I mean, I'll just kind of set it up. I know we have a few slides. This is kind of a condensed version of what we shared at South by, but my name is Camilla. I'm a strategy director at Mother LA. We're a creative agency with offices all over the globe, and I sit in the LA office. The Heartland research was really born out of just both our own curiosity as strategists and just our love of research, but also the fact that we cater to and work with clients that have a large national footprint. They deal with mass audiences, and we sit on the coasts, creating campaigns and work that is meant to be cool and interesting and exciting for these kind of audiences that are not on the coasts. And so we had a moment last, or kind of before we fielded this research, of just wondering, are we doing the right thing? Are we on the nose? Are we just kind of making work that we like, or are we doing the right kind of stuff by this audience? And what do they actually think? And so it started with kind of a marketing objective, but then very quickly it ballooned into a more kind of interesting human objective of just trying to understand an audience that we speak to, but might not really like deeply understand or know in a really intimate and authentic, to use your word, way. And so, yeah, we conducted this like 14-week research road trip across the country and created this gorgeous book with our friends at Mother Design, which is our design arm. And we shared some of those findings at South by.
Yeah, I think Camilla, the fashion industry has kind of been going crazy over this Western trend. And
Totally.
in your presentation, you showed all these examples of like this trend gone wrong. It was like Kim Kardashian doing her like cowboy theme party for Northwest. I don't know. It was like
Chicago.
Yolanda Hadid showing off her like Texas
Exactly.
ranch and all that. I think at FS we've also talked about this in various iterations, and a lot of the trend reporting tends to be kind of surface level. So I think what I really appreciated is that you actually went into these rural communities to try to get to understand them better. And if you move on to the next page, you can kind of see what your methodology was here. If you want to speak to any of this.
Yeah, so like I said, originally, we had this kind of like, advertising marketing intent to figure out, well, what do they think is actually cool? Like what is this, do they resonate with these brands or not? But we really wanted to focus on like a question that was just a lot more human and just a lot more would just give them the opportunity to just speak about their lives and their culture living in small and rural towns in America. And so the kind of central question that we had was, what do young Americans in small towns and rural communities think is cool? We worked with this amazing research partner called Nonfiction Research. If you are unfamiliar, you should definitely look them up. They do these amazing kind of really deep ethnography style, qualitative, quantitative research dives into kind of different niche communities and questions that are often unexplored, and they produce really interesting reports from that. And so we worked with them to on this research project. We covered in total 32 different states. We started with an 800 plus, quantitative survey that had some, open-ended elements as well. And then from that, we kind of found our 26 kind of one-on-one confessional interviews that we did. We interviewed youth culture experts, singer-songwriters that are based in the heartland, just different people that are kind of have more of a expert opinion on this audience and this culture. And then even did 3 on the ground immersions, 2 in Texas and 1 in South Carolina. We went line dancing, we went mudding, just really trying to immerse ourselves in all aspects of heartland culture, just like what young people in rural America are up to.
Yeah, so going on to the next slide, you're reporting, oh, sorry. I think this also kind of speaks to some of the testimonials that you got from, the people that you interviewed. And I think this kind of like in-depth interview, I feel like was like a common theme at South by and just trying to extract, deeper insights rather, if you just fill out like sometimes a survey or a poll, people tend to lie and a lot of what they say doesn't necessarily match up to their actions. So I really appreciate that you went and actually gathered these stories. But moving on to kind of the way you break down your reporting into these 4 different categories. And to me, the categories that really, stood out to me were values and creativity. So I asked Camilla today to kind of go a little bit deeper into those. And we can maybe jump into the next one, values. I think there's so much here that companies can take away from this slide, both internally and externally. I think just like the word authenticity, the word values also gets thrown very liberally around a lot, the word values, purpose. But do we really know what these things mean anymore? And can you speak a little bit to what you found in terms of values in the heartland?
Yeah, definitely. So values were, we broke the research up into 4 parts, and in the book we have 6 different parts, but I think values is really like the red thread amongst all of those parts. It affects how they view community, how they think about status, how they think about creativity even. It's all really, really wrapped up in a larger conversation around values, because this is an audience that holds their values very kind of near and dear, and they behave through their values. I think that at some point, we talk about how values kind of collapsed with identity and became like an identity marker, and people started identifying themselves through their values, but forgetting that values are actually a code of conduct, and values actually have behaviors attached to them, and you have to treat people through these values. And so one of the really interesting things for us, if you look on this left side, was from our quantitative survey, when we asked Heartlanders about values, and the values that were most important to them and those that were instilled in them from youth. The values that rose to the top are values that are a lot more community centric than values that are more individual centric. So something like respect, loyalty to friends and family, helping one another, humility, not thinking you're better than anyone else. Those are the values that people really, really hold dear and really care about, which is completely at odds kind of with this kind of like individualistic take on values that a lot of people have come to embrace, of like, well, these are my values. And speaking about values on a really individual basis, it's just not how Heartlanders and people in small rural towns are thinking about values. Values individualistic, such as like looking your best, being a cultured person, those are kind of consistently more towards the bottom. And so I think that for us was a huge unlock of just like, okay, values are an action that this community likes to prove. And it also is always in service of community and their kind of community membership versus their own individual kind of identity. And then you spoke to this a little bit, Navarra, but I think that because there is that kind of misalignment on how Heartlanders might approach values, and others might think of values, there is this kind of bigger misalignment between the way that brands think about values and the way that this audience thinks of values. And we often, I'm sure we've all had our share of like purpose-driven briefs and like, we want to really show our values off as a company. And what we often are talking about when we have those kind of values conversations are issues like sustainability, like education, like access, like safety, but we often forget about the values that actually underpin those issues. And so when we come as a brand or, you know, whatever, and just kind of talk about values, but through the lens of an issue, but not the actual value, we've kind of lost this audience already because they're like, why are you trying to teach me about values and you're not talking about a value, and there's this dissonance between thinking about brand values as brand beliefs and then the way that Heartlanders think about them as human actions. And so one of our big takeaways was really, okay, if you are, whatever the issue is that you are trying to speak to, you have to wrap it in a value to kind of meet that audience where they are and show that you understand what their values are before you just bring your own kind of brand agenda. Because oftentimes, like, there's a shared value at the core of like what a brand might be saying and what an audience like this audience believes in, but it often gets misconstrued or kind of lost in translation, literally. So that was a big learning when it came to
Yeah,
values.
I think that's actually on the next page, some of the takeaways we had from the values section. I love these statements here. Moving on to your next pillar, which is creativity. I love that you kind of in this presentation shed light on a different perspective. And it made me kind of question, you know, who gets to judge if something's creative or counts as creative work? Do you want to go into this?
Yeah, totally. Creativity was one of the most exciting ones that we discovered because, I mean, I think like in so many of our anecdotes, everyone we spoke to was building something in their backyard, was like starting a small business, was just doing something creative out of just necessity, just because there's so much less infrastructure in these small towns that they live in. They talk about this, you know, having to make their own fun, and you know, there's no movie theater, there's no like skate park. There's no kind of thing for me to do on a Friday night. So I have to go build it with myself, with my friends. And so there's this, again, difference between like the cities that have, you know, access and networking and connections. And in the country, it's just like, there's no infrastructure. So we've got to be ingenious. We've got to build our own fun. We've got to make it for ourselves. And that ingenuity really comes to the forefront, but it's not recognized by, you know, the bigger kind of arbiters of taste and of creativity. The coasts really love to gatekeep creativity. It's like, you know, where you work and how you know and what you studied. Whereas all of this creativity is just running rampant in the heartland, but it's just not getting the credit or spotlight or attention that it deserves. So that for us was, I mean, if you want to go to the next slide, I think one of the big takeaways was like, we really need to widen the creative aperture of who is creative. It is not just the creative director in Brooklyn. It is not just the creative director in LA. It is everyone that has to kind of use creativity as a skill. What creativity looks like, it is not, you know, like this big project. It can be, you know, making your dollar stretch further. It can be like building something cool in your backyard. And where it lives, it's running rampant in the middle of the country, just not getting the attention that it deserves. And so taking creativity from something that is, you know, kind of gate kept and somewhat pretentious to kind of making it a little bit more practical, instead of celebrating the creative grind, focusing on how creativity is this act of play and fun. And similarly, instead of just it being about individual expression and something that's really precious, having kind of that sense of play and experimentation that we found everywhere in the heartland.
Yeah, I think this idea of creativity as a survival skill came up in another presentation I saw at South by Southwest from this futurist from Brazil, and she was talking about Brazil's creative scene, and I think it's something I've also heard echoed in our conversations with team members around the world. Like, you know, sometimes we have to be creative out of necessity,
Mhm.
and I think that's what we forget about is like kind of those everyday moments of creativity. I think we see creativity as something like aspirational, where we create this like
Mhm.
perfect, beautiful product at the end of it, but really it could be, you know, just like, you know, making some kind of ad hoc tool because you're forced to. So I think that kind of wraps us up. And again, I think this right here, we're just kind of scraping the surface of the research that you did here. But if people were curious to know more about this, where can they find more information about the research?
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah, right here.
Sorry. Yes, this is our mother website, and then with all of our offices, and then this is just a little Heartland website that we made that goes a little bit deeper into the other themes of the research.
Yeah, I think what I loved about this project is that you actually, rather than putting the presentation online, you created like a book about it.
Yeah.
Just this beautifully designed little keepsake book. I think which really echoes a lot of the findings that you found and throughout your research. Thank you so much, Camilla, for joining us today. Such great thought-provoking work. And now I'll let the rest of the team share some cool things that they saw at South by Southwest.
Thanks, Navarra. Thanks, Camilla. It's always great hearing from our friends at other agencies, and I think this is a great project. Navarra could definitely attest to, actually, a lot of us can attest to the fact that, for probably the last 5-6 years, this is a very underserved demographic that lots of clients keep asking us about time and time again. And you can now see it more reflected in pop culture, certainly in marketing as well. So I really, really love this. And thank you so much for bringing this to everyone's attention today. All right, Navarra, did you want to talk about your other links here?
No, we can keep them on here in case anyone wants to dive through later, but I'll pass it on to Layla.
Okay. Hey, Layla.
Hi, I'm so happy to be back this month. Everyone, I'm Layla. I'm an analyst on the culture team, and this was actually my first time attending South by, so I was super excited to get to explore. There's so much to do, you can't even really scratch the surface. But first up, I wanted to share this talk that I attended that was called Behavior by Design: How Space Influences Human Interaction. And it basically just talked about how human science is the new tool in design and how we have to go beyond aesthetics and carefully consider how individuals are going to be interacting in a space. And something that really stood out to me from this panel was one of the panelists calling for a diversity of space types. So basically designing spaces to give individuals freedom to choose if they want to be alone, with others, or alone within a group. And I felt like this was really on par with some of the conversations that we've had internally, just about combating this big loneliness conversation that we're having by easing people back together in these low pressure ways instead of kind of shocking their system. So kind of rebuilding social wellness that way. And then we can go on to my next link. But I think this next link speaks really well to that sentiment as well, and a good Kids Connect too. But it's basically this 3D printed slide that was designed by Vild, I believe is how you say it. And it was basically designed with the intention to eliminate these moments of hesitation that children experience on regular slides. So transitions from stairs to a slide, or moments of pause if a child goes the wrong way or skips ahead in line. So instead of having these awkward transitions, it's kind of just this fluid structure. And I thought this was really cool just because obviously looking at it, it's kind of aesthetically pleasing just off this shape, but it kind of doesn't go for all the bright colors and primaries that you would usually see on a traditional play set, and just kind of keeps the actual play experience the main focus. So thought that was a nice connect to that talk. And then next, switching gears a little bit, I also got a chance to attend Issa Rae's keynote session, which I was so excited about. The team can tell you I was like chatting them all day about trying to get in, but it was a great time. She talked a bit about her upcoming docuseries called Seen and Heard. That's basically about the history of Black TV. It features greats like Tyler Perry, Oprah, and just kind of talks about how studios have kind of used and abandoned Black audiences, and kind of the trials and tribulations of that whole experience. And then, of course, Issa touched on some of the recent DEI attacks as well, and just kind of talked about her personal dedication to representation and how that kind of inspires her work. So I was really grateful to get to sit in on that. Her energy is so amazing. So I loved that.
You're so lucky you got to hear her speak. I've heard her speak in New York before, and one of the best presentations ever.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Dynamic. So dynamic.
I know, and all the attendees just looked so excited to see her too. I feel like the
Mhm.
energy was great.
Yeah.
And then lastly, not much to see here, but you can scroll through some of the pictures here. But I thought a nice kind of silver lining to this whole diversity conversation was that this year's music festival at South by actually had the most international acts that it has ever had in the festival's history. So international acts made up 35% of the total lineup. And if you guys want to hear more about some specific acts, then stay tuned for our full South by report. But that's all from me today.
I had heard that they were going to start downplaying more of the musical acts in future South bys. Did you get that feeling, or is that just kind of like
Yeah, I feel like,
hearsay?
I mean, it kind of is sad because that's what South by was built on,
Right.
was the music portion. Honestly, yeah, like I'm not gonna go into the politics of it, but they're getting rid of the second weekend. There's a lot of changes coming to the festival next year, but the cool thing is the music will probably happen simultaneous to the conference as well as like the TV and film portions. At least they'll be kind of like this built-in. Usually it's somewhat separated, but you know everybody's gonna be there at the same time, less
Yeah, that's going to be
like over 5 days.
crazy.
But it did seem, you know, like I went to school in Austin, and I used to be the person who like sneaking into shows and stuff like that. But like it's kind of sad that music is kind of diminishing there. I think they're honestly finding that there's like probably more profit to be made in like the other portions of the conference. But I do think that it might be nice for the music portion to kind of get, you know, more traffic through people attending other areas of the conference.
Yeah, everything changes. Um, hey, Jordan, you got some links for us.
Hey everyone, I'm Jordan. I'll round out our culture talks today. Yeah, although 35% of the music acts at South by were international, 100% of the music acts I went to at South by were international, and it was great. I got to see an excellent R&B, up and coming R&B artist from New Zealand, and then also this really interesting quartet, like kind of jazz quartet, featuring a tuba as like their main instrument. From the UK. So I was like, okay, it was fun to go out at night after the conference was over and just kind of unwind to some good music and a few folks out enjoying as well. Well, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but if anyone was not knowledgeable about this, TikTok is facing its second ban, 2.0, this upcoming Saturday, April 5th. There are ongoing talks right now in the White House today to try to save it. But I did get to go see a talk by Kevin O'Leary, who is Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank, if anyone's a fan of that show, with another organization called Project Liberty. And together they are putting together what's called the People's Bid. And this is kind of go with the big theme I'm going to stay on today, which is kind of adding some guardrails to the internet and then also giving folks back some autonomy and some sovereignty with their digital lives. So the People's Bid is really looking to kind of unlock TikTok from the algorithm that it's been running on for years. This would be Project Liberty buying TikTok off of ByteDance and then giving you, kind of like Blue Sky, the option to change up your algorithm to whatever you'd like and potentially even get paid for your user data. So whatever your viewing habits are, whatever your buying and shopping habits are, the new version of TikTok could actually pay you money to be able to access that information, and just kind of gives the users of platforms a little bit more buy-in and sovereignty that they've lost from the large media company, the large, social media companies over the years. So this is kind of like an interesting little twist on what may happen. I could also see the TikTok ban not happening at all. We've been here before. We'll probably be here again. But this was proposed as a really kind of exciting, different way of imagining what social media could look like in the future, where users kind of get more of a say, more of a grab into the platform. So staying on this theme, we'll go on to the next one right now, Public Diffusion. It's in beta still, but it's a really interesting platform. This is an image and video AI generation platform, but the difference here is that all of the content that it bases its algorithm on is open source and public. So all of the images here that are created are safe from copyright infringement into the future. If you decide to build, try to make an image off of one of these sites, it's not pulling from something that's copyright protected. These are open ways of access, of creating new imagery. And some of these images look amazing, to be quite honest. You can see right there, hyper realistic. It's still in beta, like I said, but it's all from the brainchild of the next link that I'm going to pull up, or Michael could pull up, which is Holly Plus. Holly Plus is a little project created by Holly Herndon. Some of you may be familiar with her work. She's kind of been in the zeitgeist for the last couple of years. She's kind of like at the leading edge of AI and IP, but kind of changing IP from being intellectual property to being identity play. She basically put her own voice into an AI system, and you can upload a song or you can upload really any audio file here, and it will be transferred into her voice. So basically, she's kind of doing this little play of like, all right, we're really worried about people using our likeness. We're really worried about people using data that they shouldn't be and not compensating us. Well, I'm just going to go put myself out there and you can use it. And it's kind of giving us a peek into the way that, you know, a creative marketplace could look like going forward. Grimes, another artist, is kind of on the same train. She basically said, hey, if you want to use my voice to do a collaboration, I'll split the profits of that song with you 50-50. And I think that we can start to see a future where people can kind of capture their essence, whether they're an audio artist that with a voice, or you know, whether they're even a model. I think in the last couple of months we've seen some new articles come out about models creating digital twins of themselves that can be used in campaigns across the globe all at once, but they're still getting compensated for their likeness. So I start to wonder, you know, what else can you kind of bottle up into an AI model? Maybe we could even see sometime in the future where a fashion visionary could capture and sell their own design aesthetic to be used as a collaboration. I don't even know how you would bottle or distill that, but we're already starting to see the very beginnings of a marketplace where people are opening up their creative parts of themselves and can be used and layered into other collaborations so long as they're still getting a cut. So I thought this was kind of like an interesting conversation that was running through South by. The last link that I'm going to talk about very quickly, it is a kids tie-in, but it's kind of a sad kids tie-in. We're still staying on the train of internet personalities and stuff. But just a couple of months ago, California decided to pass a bill that is making AI companies reminding kids that chatbots are not people. Back last year in 2024, there was a 14-year-old that committed suicide after speaking to a chatbot and understood it to ask him to end his life. And there are now tons of conversations around adding guardrails to chatbots, AI. I don't know if anyone's ever used Replica, the service online, but a lot of folks, I mean, you can create or interact with any millions of chatbots that have their own personalities, that have their own lore and backstory, but it's almost becoming too real, especially for younger kids. So adding in some guardrails that tell you to consult with a parent or a trusted guardian, or I can't answer that for you, or in this case, reminding the kid that this is not a real person is becoming increasingly important, and adding some more guardrails to what's kind of been the wild west of the internet, especially in AI the last few years. So I think all told, we're starting to see, especially from South by and then from states here, and even bigger legislation across the world, that we're putting more shape to what the internet should look like and kind of restoring a little bit of human autonomy to what's going on. But yeah, sorry, not to leave us on a bad note. I know that one of Nicole's first links for kids is actually quite cheery, but I did want to kind of put that out there as a recent development.
No, it's good. And I would assume Jordan and Navarra and Layla, I would assume that AI was pretty much what an overarching pattern throughout South by.
Yeah, it's definitely become more kind of like enmeshed in all the other talks.
Yeah.
I would say there were probably fewer talks that were exclusively about AI and more kind of bigger, broader concepts like design or safety or autonomy, and AI cropped up here and there. So yeah, definitely
Oh,
more
interesting.
mixed in this year.
So everyone who's a client, you can definitely look for this and way more. The culture team will be putting up live the South by Southwest report really soon. It's one of the most popular reports every year. So if you are a client, look out for that. Thanks, culture team. Appreciate all your contributions and findings from your trip. Let's have some lighthearted links then. Let's go over to the kids team. We'll start with Nicole. Hey, Nicole.
Hi, Michael. Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole, Director of Kidswear, and here's the warm and fuzzy stuff that was promised to you. So my first share was sent my way by our VP of Women's Wear, Melissa. And this actually kind of sparked our recent feature report called Reloved Revolution. So this report speaks to the growing movement of online reloved or secondhand stores for kids. So if you haven't had a chance, definitely check out that report. So this company is called Love Before. They're based in the UK. So the concept is really simple, but the marketing behind it is genius. They're an eco-friendly soft toy adoption agency, and their mission is basically to reshape the mindset towards pre-owned items using the medium of plush toys. So the idea came about when the founder, Charlotte Liebling, was inspired while working at a charity shop. She was seeing all these toy donations come through that often ended up as dog toys or even worse in a landfill. So she was really saddened by the fate of these toys that she knew each, had this unique story, a lifetime of memories with their previous owner. So if you want, Mike, we can just scroll down a little bit. They have a really cute Instagram that they show at the bottom. But the process behind it is really simple. People can either drop off or mail in their plush toys. They can include as much or as little information as possible. So maybe their name, a favorite memory, the stuffy's favorite activities, but this is all included in the toy's bio when they're placed up for adoption. So from there, they go to a spa for a deep cleaning, and then they're posted online for adoption. So either online or in some stores. So Love Before is partnering with brands and retailers to expand their adoption locations. So they have a permanent shop in Selfridges and now Bloomingdale's. So what I
This is
love about this
amazing.
company, oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, this is amazing. Anyone who's a parent, you can probably appreciate and understand that. I mean, in our household, we have like a ban of any more stuffies. I can't take anymore. So I would love a place that I could have them be adopted. I think this is so great.
It's brilliant. When Melissa shared with me, I was like, this is literally, such a clever way to run a sustainable company,
Yes.
and also just bringing new life. So I think what I love about this company is the focus is on, the item's unique journey. They're reframing customers' beliefs that brand new is always best. They're really personalizing these plushies, products through retelling their stories. They're celebrating their flaws. So they're really kind of challenging the secondhand stigma and creating this kind of lasting emotional experience for their customer. And I feel like, secondhand has always been more popular in men's and women's, but it's really great to see that more and more parents and caregivers are now buying secondhand clothes and toys for children. So I think this is definitely something that we're going to continue to see. So the next one, this ties perfectly with Layla's share on the other playground. I need some of these playgrounds in Philly because they're amazing. So this is designed by a Japanese designer, Yuri Suzuki. So she's created a sound installation at a sculpture park in Shanghai. So it features horn-shaped speaking tubes along with, swings and slides that transform this natural environment into a playful gathering space. The playground is called Otonomori, which translates to sound forest. So her aim for this was to create a communal space for rest, play, and communication. So people can come together and engage in this shared experience. So alongside these speaking tubes, there's also street furniture, swing slides, but all these different ways for kids and adults to interact with the sculpture. So as the name Sound Forest suggests, its branching like forms were inspired by the growth pattern of trees. And Suzuki points out that trees have historically served as natural gathering places that offer shelter and fostering community interaction.
This is some Dr. Seuss stuff right here.
It's beautiful. I was like,
love it.
and it's nice to project the sound into something than just a bunch of screaming children. And my last one, so Last but not least, this goes out to anyone who has ever gotten lost in an IKEA. I know I have. But they just revealed yesterday that they're working on plans for a linear store. So it's going to depart from its current labyrinth layout. It's an unconfirmed site, but it's basically going to stretch almost 2 kilometers in length to accommodate all the showrooms and warehouse space. They're going to have basically a people mover, or what they're calling a travelator, that's going to transport shoppers just straight through the store. And this was due to concerns about shoppers getting lost in IKEA stores. I had to double check because apparently one customer got stuck and lost overnight, which really did happen. So that's crazy. So I understood this layout because, I understand people, need a more seamless shopping experience. But this quote from IKEA's head of retail was a little bit concerning. So Tolga Anku says, with the rise of digital maps, GPS, and the very real fact that people are barely looking up from their phone screens, we're finding that people don't seem to have the navigation skills that they used to. So our solution is to build a store that's impossible to get lost in. So to me, I was thinking, what interests me about this new proposed layout and the Love Before is they both kind of speak to the different futures of retail. So one is where they're viewing these customers as their robots on a conveyor belt that can't look up off of their phone to even be able to navigate their way out of a sofa section. And the other is, Love Before, that's really showing this future of this human connection and emotion that can be found in a retail experience. So something that's sparking joy at the discovery of a unique product. And that's it for me.
Thanks, Nicole. Jane, what you got for us?
Okay, so I'm actually straying a bit away from the kids area with what we're looking at. So as I'm sure all of us are aware, bird flu and just the general economy has been really greatly affecting the price of eggs, especially in major cities in the US. So a lot of people have been looking for different solutions, from selling packs of Lucy's, which is 3-ish eggs for a cheaper amount in bodegas, to people smuggling them in from Mexico, where a dozen is more around $2. The average price right now in the US is $5.90 for a dozen, which is 58.8% higher than last year. And in places like New York or LA, a dozen eggs can be $10 or over in a lot of supermarkets, which is what it is around me. So with groceries becoming more of a luxury and eggs becoming essentially unattainable, enter The Ordinary, a brand that's known for being very straightforward, simple, affordable. They offer serious skincare ingredients that actually work for a lot of the time less than $10 per product. So 2 weekends ago, they offered packs of a dozen eggs for $3.37 each in both of their New York City store locations. As far as I can tell, there weren't really any gimmicks or forced product purchases, just a bunch of cheap eggs if you're willing to wait in the line. So there's been a bit of controversy about it from those who are angry that the brand claims to be vegan or cruelty-free. But a lot of people are also just vaguely disturbed that this is the cheapest eggs that a lot of us in New York have seen in ages. And why is it up to a beauty brand to be the only one who can give us affordable eggs? I personally did not go, although I considered it, and I'd love to hear if anyone from the team did end up going to get their cheap eggs from the beauty store. But I'm not much of an egg person. I don't cook a lot. But moreover, just the thought of standing in line for who knows how long, probably hours, wrapping around blocks just to get a dozen eggs was a really dystopian thought. So I just couldn't quite bring myself to do it. But it's a very interesting idea for a marketing ploy. People have been asking where they're getting their suppliers, how they're able to offer us eggs that we deserve at a price we deserve. And while I'm sure they aren't marking these eggs up for nearly as much as an actual grocer would, and that the money spent is considered to be part of their PR budget, and rightfully so, because now there are countless articles already out there about this. So it definitely was successful from at least more of a marketing perspective.
And
So
Jane,
I
I'm really
think,
glad you brought, I just wanted to add to this. Business of Fashion did a great article around this that I found really interesting. And really, it's this new concept that's like called gentle outrage, which is a new form of retail marketing. It's kind of political without being overtly political. And this is an example of that. And so the brand is kind of making consumers feel like that their favorite brand or store is just as outraged about a specific topic and they want to be there and support them. And so this is a great example for that. So if you have access to BOF, then check out that article. It goes in depth about it, but great example of that.
yeah, absolutely. It's a really interesting example of maybe how brands can kind of be on our side, although some people were also kind of saying that if they really wanted to provide accessible eggs to people who need it, they would have put this in like locations in the Bronx and stuff. But I think it's also an important example of how brands can find a way to support their community with more functional promotions. And expanding to food for someone where obviously this is not their market for this event did actually allow many New Yorkers to get their hands on more affordable eggs at a time where people are really struggling to do so. And just thinking about how brands can continue to serve their customers and the community that they claim to care so much for in ways beyond offering their expected product or service. So now on to this next one really quickly. This is an article and post from Whitewall, which is showcasing some of their favorite set designs from Fashion Month. Basically just looking at these huge rooms and sets for runway shows without anyone in them. I find it really mesmerizing as well as slightly haunting. It feels kind of liminal and dreamlike with a lot of uninterrupted lines and curves and solid colors or monochromatic palettes that make the walls and floors and ceilings all sort to blend together. And I find it really impactful to just see like all the empty seats in all their glory, see all the details and the art without distraction or the added information of guests and collections, and just removing the clothing from the set to see what energy it holds on its own.
I love these. As someone that used to attend a lot of fashion shows in my previous life and career, it always was astonishing to me, especially some of the big brands in Milan, like Armani and Prada, Zegna, and they hold their shows at their headquarters every season. And it's so cool to see what the spaces look like without the decor of the season. Of course, other brands in Paris typically change locations every time, but so much goes into it. So seeing these spaces and how they tell a story, I agree, is really fascinating. Thanks, Kids team. Appreciate your links. And then we're gonna close up today's webinar with our two amazing team members from Active. We'll start with Tamara. Hey, Tamara.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tamara. I'm a senior strategist here at FS for Activewear. So, yeah, Michael, you can maybe press play, but maybe mute the video. So I will talk over it. Awesome. So my first link is actually a documentary I wanted to share with you. It's called Until the Last Beat. And it's a documentary that depicts a group of Maya athletes in Southeast Mexico, more specifically the San Pedro Chimaiti. So this team plays Poctopoc, which is an ancient Mesoamerican ball game that's often considered the oldest team sport in the whole world. So it traces back to almost 3,000 years ago, and it's passed on from generation to generation. So the idea is that the team scores a point by using their hips to hit a rubber ball and then out of bounds on the opposite side. So besides obviously introducing us to the game, the documentary also tells the stories of these athletes and their personal lives. And it really takes us on their journey towards the World Cup in Belize, which comes with a lot of, financial struggles to get there. So it's really interesting to see how they integrate the game into their daily lives. Because through this game and practicing this game, they really want to bring glory to their local community. So they also talk a lot about their Maya culture, their traditions and teachings, and how their culture influences how they see the world, which is always leading with joy and perseverance and really being proud of their unique identities. So the goal was here from the producers to really bring more visibility to this sport and to really revive an almost forgotten legacy from this community. So I just thought it was really interesting to share and to see also, because I saw a documentary as well, see how this ancient ball game really serves really as a way to connect with their Maya cultures, their roots and their ancestors, especially here at FS. We have been talking a lot about, the coming together of local and global influences and the importance of honoring ancient wisdom in finding meaning and purpose. And I feel like this documentary really brought it in a very beautiful way. So if you have a bit of time, definitely recommend watching it. And continuing on that note, I wanted to highlight a collaboration between Adidas and Colombian fashion brand Mas. It's designed by Manuela Alvarez, and they present the Raíz de Fénix collection, which is a collection that reimagines kind of like the staple Adidas sportswear item through the lens of Colombian artisanal heritage. So for them, it's much more than clothing. They describe it as a tribute to transformation, regeneration, memory, and resilience of the Mujer Colombia, the Mujer Phoenix, and the strength of Colombian women. So they utilize a lot of macrame, beadwork, horizontal weaving, leather molding, and other more traditional techniques from Colombia that really become the soul of the collections. So I just love how they really work together with artisanal communities in there and kind of like introduce or incorporate these more traditional techniques into these designs. So again, a really interesting example again on how sports brands are really showcasing cultural heritage and the actual makers of the brand in a really beautiful way, and try to have products that tell a story and a narrative with cultural significance as well. So the next few links, Michael, are just a few interviews with some of the makers. So you can go through them in your own time. But just for sake of time, I'm just gonna skip through them. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting to see how like a global brand wanted to work with more local artisans and textile designers to, again, create more visibility for them on a more international fashion landscape, and kind of like more validates those more traditional techniques. So we can go to the next link.
Sorry, which one should I
Yes,
go
that
to?
one. That's perfect,
Okay,
Michael.
perfect.
Thank you. Yeah, there are a lot of links. So next one here, I wanted to quickly introduce the designer I came around in my research. She's called Megan Hughes. She's a Manchester-based women's wear designer that created her own brand. It's called Make It Wet. And I thought the story behind was really interesting, as she created this brand inspired by her family's legacy and ancestors, which were fishermen in the north of Wales. And the local coastline and, coastal living were always a big part of her lifestyle, and she introduced that into her garments. So for her brand, she was also inspired by the landscapes of, oceans and coastal living, and basically all of her prints she made herself from her own photography collection. And she also uses dead stock fabrics and locally sourced materials to create her designs. So for her, as she describes it, her brand is a symbol of fearless fashion and a nod to her past heritage, and a fusion of local inspirations with a twist on nautical empowerment, which I thought was really beautiful. And she recently also collaborated with Nike, which Michael, you showed on the first collection. So I think we will be hearing a lot more from her in the future. And to finish, just quickly, just wanted to that one. Highlight a new magazine that is set to launch in May. It's called Players, and it's a magazine at the intersection of fashion and sports. So all things we love. So it will be, it's created by Corinne Roitfeld, obviously a fashion, an icon in the fashion industry. And it will be a magazine that will be biannual. So again, I thought it was interesting to mention it, as of lately, we have been seeing a lot of more of these pairings between fashion and sports, with an ultimate peak during the Paris Olympics. So really interesting to see which athletes will be featured, and how this partnership with fashion will be explored in the future. So that's all
Thanks,
for me.
Tamara.
Thank you.
Hey, Rachel.
Hey, love all these links today. You know what, Michael, and for sake of time, I think I'll just go to the last two links.
Okay, you got it.
Yeah, thanks. So I know that there's a lot of us that are big fans of the show Severance. So I saw this campaign and I wanted to share because I really love it. So this is coming from digital fitness platform Ladder, and they aim to make the workouts easier through programs and coaching that are really made to take the guesswork and planning out of your routine. So really you can just show up and start moving and do what you do best. So first on their Instagram, they started highlighting a lot of client reviews where users were saying how much they love the program, how much they love Ladder, because it really feels effortless. You can kind of just turn off your brain, follow along, and how the platform really creates that sort of locked in mindset. And a lot of that really aligns with conversations that Tamara and I have been discussing in the past few seasons in Active, where consumers want less distraction and more focus when it comes to workouts. I love that part of the video. They do the elevator scene so perfect. And they even have in further posts behind the scenes of how they got that shot. But I think they really brought that idea to life. And I love how they showcase not just the feedback from the consumers, but they really pulled inspiration from Severance in such a fun and clever way. You know, they really nailed, again, that closet transformation, aka that elevator switch. And then they effectively drive forward their brand's focus of planning and structure. And again, really allowing and putting the focus on just shutting the brains off, not having to think about anything except just doing the workout. They're really there to make the fitness simple, accessible, and also they tapped into a really fun and cultural reference, such as the Severance campaign. So again, they're putting the focus back on the fun.
I love that. And what parent hasn't locked ourselves away in the pantry at times?
If you go through the brain switch, let me know on that one. But yeah, that's
Okay, okay.
it's a really fun campaign. For this one here, I'm going to speak about it a little bit, but then I think we should watch with the sound on because this has been one of my favorite campaigns in a while. But it definitely has a song that will get stuck in your head for the rest of the day. So sorry, not sorry. This is coming from Puma, and they have this new campaign called The Runner's High, and it's featuring Afroman, who they got back in the studio to re-record a new version of his hit Because I Got High, but this time with the runner's twist. And what's really awesome about this ad is that it ties into, again, a lot of what Tamara and I have been forecasting for quite a while now in Active, especially running, but fitness is really shifting away from that intense pressure to really push ourselves and instead focusing more on the love of the sport and just having fun with it. In this ad, it's again really finding that mind-body connection and balance, and it's no longer really about chasing the goals, the numbers, and the competition. So in Active, that goal now seems to be finding that new version of high. So whether it's the runner's high or finding your flow or really whatever makes you feel good when working out, that sense of enjoyment, mental clarity is taking that center stage. And I love how Puma is really embracing this shift. So this campaign has been really resonating with people because it's that reminder that fitness can be fun, freeing, and about how it makes you feel rather than just how hard you push yourself. And I think it's perfect for the last 2 minutes. I do want to replay this with the sound on because the lyrics that Afroman changed to are perfect. I love it.
I'm gonna refresh it.
I was gonna sleep in late, but then I got but then I got high. Then I got high. Gonna text my ex, but then I got high.
I'm not sure if that sounds working for everyone else, so maybe go out and check it on your own time. But again, it's a really great cultural moment. I wanted to highlight, I have a few more links on there that we didn't get to today because everyone has such great links, but I really love this new resurgence of campaigns, again, putting the focus back on fun, putting the focus on, you know, more this mental health connection when it comes to fitness. And I think there's more of that. So something to look forward to in the upcoming seasons of Active, and yeah, another great show and tell.
Thanks, Rachel. That was my fault. I didn't set up our audio settings correctly for today, so
It's all
apologies.
good.
I realized it once I started playing it, but we're going to share all of these with you guys, and you can catch up along with some of the links we didn't get to today. But thanks for joining us. We'll see you back here again Wednesday, May 7th, in the height of spring. Thank God. If you guys would like to request a demo or just learn more about us, feel free to drop an email at hello@futuresnoops.com. And of course, follow us on all our socials and stay in touch. And we'll see you in the month of May. Have a wonderful first month of spring, guys. Talk soon. Bye.